Welcome to a study that exhorts us to flee from the corruption of the world, from the final apostasy of the earth. This apostasy and corruption is centered in the religious world, which unites at the end to dishonor God while presuming to honor Him. It is represented by a woman called Babylon, whose principal see is found in Rome and reveals four basic characteristics. She is adulterous because instead of uniting with Jesus, she fornicates with the rulers of the earth in an illicit union of church and state, Revelation 72. She is also bloodthirsty, Revelation 17, verses 5 and 6. Deceitful, 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 9 to 12. Demonic, Revelation 18:3. And corrupting, Revelation 18:2. And what is worse, she tries to cover such degradation with an exterior mantle of holiness, pretending to take the place of God on earth. This is a vast subject, and some ask if it is worthy to try to understand all its implications. Is it not better and more edifying to read the Gospels? Some love to read a book like The Desire of Ages. Others are more attracted by the book The Great Controversy. Both books are necessary, as also are Revelation and the Gospels. In studying these dramatic subjects, let us never forget that Jesus himself reveals them in the book of Revelation. If we disregard them, we will end up falling for the last day deceptions, because we will become unable to understand the nature of the great conflict, good and evil, which is consummated at the end. In the few minutes that we have to face so extensive a subject as that of the harlot called Babylon, it will be fitting to respond in a precise and concrete way to the principal questions that have been raised against its application to the Roman Catholic Church. This interpretation has already existed for more than a millennium and cannot be entirely snuffed out, because it is impossible to deny its relation to the history of Rome. Let us share a statement of the book of The Great Controversy, which summarizes this connection on page 382. The power that for so many centuries maintained despotic sway over the monarchs of Christendom is Rome. The purple and scarlet color, the gold and precious stones and pearls vividly picture the magnificence and more than kingly pomp affected by the haughty see of Rome. And no other power could be so truly declared drunken with the blood of the saints as that church, which has so cruelly persecuted the followers of Christ. Babylon is also charged with the sin of unlawful connection with the kings of the earth. Let us deal with the first usual objection. Babylon is not a literal city according to the argument, because it is represented as a symbolic and universal harlot who rides a symbolic beast, while the city of Rome is local. Let us answer this objection. Why is the Church of the Popes called the Roman Catholic Church? Is it because she is a local power? What does Catholic mean? Universal. What does Roman mean? The city of Rome as the local see of a universal religious empire. For this reason, John says that this woman is the only church in the world which is also a city. As a matter of fact, the Roman Catholic Church makes no sense without the city of Rome. Otherwise, she would cease being considered Roman. Neither do the true people of God make sense without linking them to a real heavenly city. The Apostle Paul states that Jesus has prepared a city for them, Hebrews 11:16. The heavenly one, Hebrews 12:22 and Revelation 21:2. This is important to bring out because the Bible doesn't link Christianity with an earthly city, but with the New Jerusalem, which is in heaven. In his last 2 chapters of the book of Revelation, John portrays that city as being the only one which is holy. Is it not a real city because it is universal and is in heaven? How regrettable is that in the early counterfeit, millions looked to the sovereign pontiff instead of seeking the blessing of the true high priest of the New Jerusalem. Let us deal with the second objection. The 7 mountains upon which the harlot sits are, in the argument, not the 7 mountains of the city of Rome, because John has said that these mountains represent 7 kings or successive universal empires. If the mountains are literal, does the Roman Church sit upon only one of them? Let us answer that objection. Are not the 7 churches of Revelation successive? Do they cease being contemporaneous and geographical because they are viewed in the prophetic perspective as successive till the coming of the Lord? Let us be careful not to impose exegetical rules that we will have to violate in other places without rhyme or reason. The angel displays before John all the empires of the world, which are represented at the end in the 7 hills of the city of Rome, even if they are successive in the symbol. In the book The Great Controversy, we are told that the dragon in Revelation 13 represents the devil and, in a secondary sense, pagan Rome. But in Revelation 17, the 7 hills of the city of figurative Babylon, which corresponds literally with Rome, cannot have a secondary sense according to the self-enlightened gurus of this new generation. Even worse, in these new interpretations, the primary sense is altogether replaced with the secondary sense. The city of Rome, with her 7 hills, is put aside to keep only its secondary application to empires. Why? Because the modern slogan is to avoid as much as possible a direct application of the apocalyptic prophecies to Rome. It is for this reason that these same exegetes look for non-Roman fulfillments of the 7 trumpets of Revelation, which they believe have little or nothing to do with Rome. The 7 mountains or empires of the world are seen portrayed in the last rebellious and apostate city of the prophetic history, which chose those 7 mountains to establish her kingdom, Rome. In other words, the picture of the city of Rome is, in itself, a symbolic mock-up of all the empires of the world. Thus, why should we wonder at the way God unmasked the rebellious and apostate spirit of Rome, bringing out how those former kingdoms who arose to oppose him are portrayed in her 7 hills? Therefore, we can read in those 7 hills how the Roman Catholic Church is supported by the rebellious kingdoms of the world to continue that agenda of opposition to the divine government. We may read a description of mountains in connection with the attitude of the empires in past times in Isaiah chapter 2, verses 12 to 15. Let us deal with the 3rd objection. The book of Revelation speaks of 7 mountains. In Greek is oros. Not of 7 hills. In Greek is bonos, as those who are in Rome. Consequently, in the argument, those 7 mountains cannot be a reference to the topography of the city of Rome, which contains 7 hills. Let us answer this objection. Rome was identified in the days of John and even today by 7 mounts or months, as well as by 7 hills, collis in Latin. The city is portrayed in Latin as Septem Montes Romae. We often find the terms mountains and hills superimposed or employed indiscriminately as synonyms, in Latin as well as in Hebrew and Greek. This is because sometimes it is hard to delimit when they became mountains or stopped being called hills. A fourth objection. There are not 7 mountains in Rome, but actually more. Let us answer this objection. It is true that today there are more than 7 hills in the city of Rome. In addition to the 7 known hills, there are 3 more hills, one in the north of the city and 2 in the zone called Trastevere. However, those hills do not belong to the famous 7 which were part of the culture of the Roman Empire since the legend of Romulus and Remus. The first settlements were developed in those 7 hills which would lead to the metropolis. The aforementioned 3, which didn't form part of the 7, had no historical relevance in the development of the city. Only 7 have a direct link with the history of Rome. A fifth objection. The papacy sits on the Vatican, not on the 7 mountains of Rome. Let us answer this objection. For a period of about 1,000 years, the principal palace of the papal residence was on the Cælian Hill, one of the 7 mountains of the city of Rome. In the Lateran Treaty of 1929, Mussolini yielded the Vatican State to the papacy, which is in front of the 7 hills. He also granted the papacy several other extraterritorial properties within the old city of Rome, among them the Lateran Palace of the Holy See, which is in the Cælian Hill. There is found also the see of the Roman Vicariate. On the other hand, how has the Pope always been referred to, even is today, as the Bishop of the Vatican or the Vision of Rome? Is it the Pope of the Vatican or the Pope of Rome? How is his church identified? Is it Vatican Catholic Church or Roman Catholic Church? So it is historically accurate to link the city of the 7 hills with the papacy, who ruled for more than 1 millennium. The fact that after the Avignon captivity he was settled in other places of Rome doesn't change that historical reality. He continues being the Pope of Rome, and the Catholic Church continues being Roman. Objection 6th. The Babylon of the 7 hills may refer to several other cities, which led some futurist evangelicals to identify it with the Old Jerusalem. Wikipedia has a web page where about 70 cities of the world have 7 mountains or hills. Now, our answer. No other city with 7 hills fulfills the apocalyptic requisites to apply to them the title Babylon. No city in the world can rival Rome for her historical importance and her predominance over peoples, nations, and empires. No other city fits the biblical prophecy in the historical fulfillment. Rome is the last empire of the prophecy, as the Rome of the Caesars, which became papal Rome. On the other hand, the Bible never referred to the Old Jerusalem as the city with the 7 mountains, because there were not 7 mountains in that city. Let us deal with the 7th objection. Babylon would not be the Roman Catholic Church, but the final apostasy of all the churches, including that church. Our answer. What nickname is given to Babylon in Revelation 17? Mother of harlots. The harlot daughters are the churches which join their mother at the end, falling into the apostasy into which he had fallen centuries before. But the center and axis of that apostasy is still Rome. A mother comes first, the daughters come later. The fact that she appears already with her daughters, the Protestant churches, shows us that John sees her in the final time when she will receive her sentence of divine condemnation. John sees the mother harlot Babylon drunk with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, which makes reference to a former bloody time, something that took place in the Middle Ages. Though the projection of the vision is placed at the end, the angel of the seven plagues depicts her role in all of her medieval story. The description of the apparel of the harlot and the golden cup, as well as her bloody spirit brought out in Revelation 17, 1-5, corresponds exclusively to the Roman Catholic Church of the Middle Ages. No biblical or extra-biblical text has been shown me to prove that the two colors combined, purple and scarlet, symbolize a harlot. Neither do these two colors correspond to the three colors found in the high priest and the tabernacle of Israel. Babylon doesn't include the blue color. God shows John simply the two colors dressed by the purpurates and cardinals of the Roman See. The summary made by Ellen G. White of Babylon and her daughters is impressive. Let us read some of her statements. Many of the Protestant churches are following Rome's example of iniquitous connection with the kings of the earth. The term Babylon, confusion, may be appropriately applied to these bodies, all professing to derive their doctrines from the Bible, yet divided into almost innumerable sects with widely conflicted creeds and theories. Therefore, her daughters must be symbolized churches that cling to her doctrines and traditions and follow her example of sacrificing the truth and the approval of God in order to form an unlawful alliance with the world. The message of Revelation 14, announcing the fall of Babylon, must apply to religious bodies that were once pure and have become corrupt. Since this message follows the warning of the judgment, it must be given in the last days. Therefore, it cannot refer to the Roman Church alone, for that church has been in a fallen condition for many centuries. At the time of their rise, these Protestant churches took a noble stand for God and the truth, and his blessing was with them. But they fell by the same desire which was the curse and ruin of Israel, the desire of imitating the practices and courting the friendship of the ungodly. Let us pass to the eighth objection. The harlot sits upon a beast with 7 heads, which represent kingdoms. One of them, in the argument, is the kingdom upon which she rules. How may we combine both symbols? Now let us give our answer. In her closing years, the Roman Caesars supported the Bishop of Rome in the Christian litigations against paganism. When the Caesars fell, the papacy took their place and resorted to the political support of another kingdom to prevail. The popes could obtain that political support from the emperors which were raised in the West, whose regime was finally called the Holy Roman Empire, to distinguish it from the old pagan kingdom of the Caesars. Support came initially from the Frankish king Clovis in the year 508, who settled his kingdom in Paris after converting to the Catholic faith under a system of church-state union. Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian expelled the opposing non-Catholic Arian princes who were ruling Rome in the year 538. This cleared the political panorama of Rome for the papacy. Other kings followed in France to support the papacy, the most prominent being Charlemagne in the 8th century. Spanish and Austrian emperors of that Holy Roman Empire continued until succumbing to the troops of Napoleon in the year 1806. It was that army who had imprisoned Pope Pius VI in the year 1798, decreeing that no other authority would be permitted to arise from the old kingdom of the Pope. Thus, the Roman Catholic Church does not represent the emperor, but rides upon him in a disgraceful marriage which lasted for the entire Middle Ages between the political and religious powers. Rome assumes, in turn, the spirit of all the former blasphemous kingdoms who opposed the kingdom of God. According to what we have already seen, that spirit is symbolized by the 7 mountains of Rome, which became a prophetic mock-up of all the kingdoms of the world. Now we are reaching the objection number 9. The blasphemous titles are upon the beast, which represent the political authority of the emperor, not upon the woman, who therefore represents the blasphemous authority which reigned for 1260 years. Let us answer this objection. In Revelation 17:7, the mystery of the woman and of the beast which carries her is the same. That mystery consists of the horrendous abomination which the state, represented by the beast, brings, allowing the harlot to ride it, imposing and enforcing her idolatrous and blasphemous dogmas. Abomination means detestable, idolatry, the worst kind of idolatry. The new form of the Roman Empire adopted the Roman Catholic Church with all its conglomerate of dogmas and blasphemous prerogatives. Monk Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century represented that church-state union of 2 crowns, namely the imperial crown and the papal crown, as the union of soul, the church, and body, the empire. The body or state does not command the soul or church, but the contrary. Thomas Aquinas didn't realize in the 13th century that what he saw in his day was admirably represented by the angel of the 7th place with the symbol of the beast, the state, and a prostitute woman which rides it, the church. When the Pope crowned the emperor, he told him, "Receive this sword by the hands of bishops, who, though unworthy, are consecrated to be in the place and authority of the holy apostles, deliver it to you with our blessing to serve for the defense of the Holy Church divinely ordained." The emperor kneeled before him and replied, "In the name of Christ, I, the emperor, promise, pledge, and guarantee in the sight of God and the blessed Apostle Peter that I will be the protector and defender of his holy Roman Church in all ways useful to her." Now let us deal with a 10th objection. It comes from a preterist approach which pretends that all the book of Revelation is related to the time of the apostles in the 1st century. Babylon would be a reference to an old city which was the see for the Roman emperors. Let us answer this proposition. A pure and persecuted woman, like that portrayed in Revelation 12, represents the true Church of Christ, which gives birth to sons who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. A corrupt and persecuting woman represents the apostate Church of Rome, which gives birth to apostate harlot daughters, because they rely on the rulers of the world to enforce their dogmas. The true woman looks upward to her capital, the New Jerusalem. The false church looks downward and is supported by the dwellers of the earth, which submit to her prerogatives. Rome. The pure woman is pregnant, which links her to the origin of Christianity, because her son is none other than the Son of God. The corrupt woman never appears connected with the beginning of Christianity, but with a later apostasy. John sees her when she is drunk with the blood of the saints and is the mother of harlots. Pagan Rome has been extinct for more than 1,500 years, while the woman Babylon lasts until the coming of the Lord, when she is completely annihilated. The last call of God to the world, through the offspring of the pure woman who keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus, is to come out from that universal apostasy. In every religion, there are sincere people who follow God according to the dictates of their conscience. Jesus calls them in the following terms: "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins or contract any of her plagues." Revelation 18, verse 5. But in order to faithfully deliver such a message, we must be careful that Babylon has not become infiltrated among us. Let us notice that the final call of God is not to unite ecumenically with all religions, but to withdraw from that apostasy in order to preserve the line of demarcation, God's commandments, and the testimony of Jesus, Revelation 12:17. If we accept that call, we will unite with all those whom the Lord will take with him to his glory, praising God for his judgments against the early oppressing kingdom. Will we hear that call? So be it. Amen.